Hey everyone, today we're ranking every single ugly sweater in Dead by Daylight from worst to best. A nice festive video. For this ranking I'm going to judge the sweaters by their visuals for the most part, but also how well they fit the character they're on, with bonus points if they feel festive. Here's our tiers and let's get into it. Boring ugly sweaters. Steve is unfortunately going to be my bottom pick, and simply because he has the most generic ugly sweater ever. And yes, I know it's the one he wears in the show, but he could have gotten this and a slightly more personalized ugly sweater like everyone else as well. This is just fine. Nancy is debatably worse, but is at least unique. Again, I know it's from the show, but they could have released this separately and given her a specific other design. I do like it though, with all the tiny cupcakes. This one does feel more personal to her compared to Steve's much more generic festive sweater too, but this one isn't festive at all really. David has a sweater that just looks quite lacking in detail. It's depicting a rugby ball being thrown between the goalposts with the back saying "good try." It does have festive colours, I suppose, but it just looks too blurry almost, and I'm not the biggest fan of the sleeves either. Claudette is another example of it just not being very festive or going on that ugly sweater theme. It just looks like quite a nice sweater that she might wear regularly, depicting some tomato plants, I think, receiving rays of sunlight. Fitting for her as a botanist, but not that ugly nor festive or even wintry really. It looks quite summery actually. Nia has another pleasant sweater, but not really fitting as an ugly sweater again. It's got a cat design representative of her cat-like reflexes. It's nice and does have a good wintry feeling colour scheme though, so yeah, not too bad. Dwight, again, I just think doesn't represent the character that well. Sure, he delivered pizza, but I wouldn't generally associate him with fast food as a whole. It does have some more wintry colours though, and the food does fall across the sweater almost like snow. Zarina, I think, is just fine, but it's quite boring despite her being so cool. It's a fairly generic sweater with a camera and a coffee on the back. A bit too generic in my opinion, for someone who has so much potential. Jonah is kind of the same. He has a pretty generic festive sweater with a big brain on the back. It feels like an oversimplification of him as a character, and so yeah, not bad, but just a bit generic. Decent ugly sweaters. Jake has maybe the most bizarre of the sweaters that I'm placing as decent, as it's a little confusing for one, but also not festive at all. It features a man climbing a tree to escape bears, with him shown to be dead on the flip side. Yeah, it's interesting, but not really as an ugly sweater, I think. Certainly not boring though. Meg has quite a baffling sweater, I think, with her having a basketball game being depicted, even though she's famously a runner. Its depiction of a last-minute victory, I think, is why it's hers. I do like the colour scheme, and I find it does have a festive quality also, so I'll put it a little bit higher. Adam has a pretty decent design overall, I think, with it incorporating him as a teacher with the chalkboard. It all does have festive elements with the snow-like shapes at the top and with the wintry colouring, so it's decent. Élodie, I do find strays a bit too far into generic for me, but I do think it does have some more slightly unique elements, like the compass and how it spans out from the middle of the sweater, combining it with the wintry shapes and patterns. I do like that. Felix is our first in a string of sweaters that depict a different item of clothing through the sweater. In this case, a suit. I get what they're going for with this, but it also does just look a bit awkward, I think, with its tie as the main feature drawing your eyes. I do love the colour scheme though, and various patterns to accompany it, but it's a kind of a bizarre concept. As a personal preference, it's just not my kind of thing. Vittorio has this sort of medieval knight look for his sweater. It does look a little silly, but for someone from that time, it does make more sense to go this route, I think. It does also have some vaguely festive patterns at the top and on the arms, so yeah, it's pretty unique. Tapp is our final in this trend, and I think the best executed of the three. It has the central protective vest with the detective shield, but utilizes the police stars for a festive nature, and also the bullet holes almost like falling snow, which is quite clever, despite the fairly goofy looking design. Kate is another with a somewhat generic look, with it featuring horses and music, two things she likes, but it's effective. The colours work, the white patterns of the swirls and music notes do relay a festive feel, so I quite like this one still. Baermar has a relatively generic sweater, I think, as well, featuring festive notes, but also having a huge harp in the middle. I do like it, but it doesn't look overly cohesive in my opinion, and a little bit messy. Aestri, I think, has a better version with her lute and overall central design working it a whole lot better, also featuring an inbuilt cloak sort of idea around the back, sort of similar to Vittorio's medieval kind of design. It's sound, I think. Ace I also find to just be decent. It's got largely a gambling theme. I do like the central aces, and I like how there is a festive theme throughout, with the colours doing a lot here to relay that. But yeah, not bad. Susie is our first killer here, and she has a pretty solid sweater, but overall just decent, I think. It's a nice pink colour and features a braced together heart on the front, much like the BFFs add-on. The back features all 4 Legion members' faces. It's pleasant, but does feel like it could be a bit more expanded, especially with the greater surface area available to the killers. Joey, I think, has a slightly better sweater than Susie's, with the colour scheme working a bit better, I think, and featuring the Legion members slightly more clearly on the back with the big X. I do like the slashes on the front too, making it killer fitting. Jane is solid. It's actually a bit understated though, I think, despite her being quite a big personality. Whilst I do like the colour scheme and flashiness of this, it's also a bit confusing with the text overlaying the star. It's a bit hard to read actually, but it's a nice idea, and I do like the colours overall. Good ugly sweaters. Rebecca has a fairly simple but nice sweater, I think, featuring various things that represent her, like the first aid sprays, needles, a medic patch, and a basketball. The brown suits her well, and I like the small festive designs. Yui has an interesting sweater, with it having this sort of 8-bit style game design. The bike at the center is nice, and I do like the cityscape and the helmet, which looks kind of like Master Chief to me, don't you think? I think it could use a few more festive elements, but it is really solid overall, especially with the Sakura 7 logo on the back. Gabriel, I think, deserves some points for creativity, with his outfit featuring this array of planets, moons, and stars, but also retaining some festive quality with the sleeves having this star and snow-like pattern. It's quite garish, but it does work effectively. Ripley, I want to say, is a slightly better version of Gabriel's, as it incorporates the space theme, but also more of Ripley's character, and in general has a more varied design, whilst also keeping some festive qualities too, so I like this one. Sable has an odd ugly sweater, with it featuring a heavy Halloween theme, which obviously isn't particularly festive, although there are some festive elements like these stars and falling patterns on the sleeves. The central witch is incredibly detailed though, and I do really love the overall colour scheme of this one. Feng, yes, is super simple, but I think it works really well in this case due to the design being pretty much perfect. It features the level up on the front and game over on the back, with a lovely pink theme featuring a pixel design, with festive elements too with the falling snow. Very nice. Ada is also fairly simple, but the idea is sound with the central butterfly and nice red colour scheme, which represents her overall character well. I do like when they do the circled lettering on the back too, featuring the character's name along with her handgun. That looks really cool. Renato has a very bright colour scheme for his sweater, but it does look amazing and very engaging, and does also retain some festive qualities, with the lower section having these tree-like shapes with tree lights. The design fits them very nicely, I think. Thalita has a similar vibe, but I do prefer hers ever so slightly, with the colours just working so well together. It does look very tropical, but this still works, I think, with the top section, with the wave froth, or whatever it's called, looking a lot like snow. It's a very lovely design. Alan Wake has an initially fairly generic looking sweater from the front, but with clear festive themes and a nice colour scheme. It's on the back where it really shines, literally, with the huge lighthouse that beams out and expands across the back. Really great and very character fitting. Jeff is another sweater that looks fairly basic, but executes its concept really well, with the metal theme and the central skull, the flames being thrown up, with it all being part of a performance, as you can see the crowd at the bottom. Festive elements are incorporated with the tiny skulls acting as falling snow. It's really cool. My main wish for this one would be for it to have a different design or some sort of alteration on the back instead of just the same skull. Leon has a very solid design featuring lots of varying elements that represent him, like the RPD, zombies, and all whilst pairing it up really well with many festive elements. My main gripe with this one is the huge blank blue area at the very top that feels as if it could be filled with something. Otherwise it looks great though. Mikaela has a great looking sweater, with it similar to Sable's being fairly Halloween coded, but does have some festive elements too, with the stars and falling shapes to make for a festive feel. I do like the colours of this one as well. They look very appealing. Amazing ugly sweaters. Haddie has an amazing but admittedly slightly cluttered design, but it's hard not to like it because it feels like the more you look, the more there is, the more you catch. The central eye is very striking, almost like this third eye opening up her world, which spans out around her. It does also feature key festive elements like the snowflake shapes as well though. Yeah, very good. Taurie, I'm admittedly biased toward as a Taurie main, but I love this one, and the color scheme is so amazing with how the colors blend and interweave. It's also apparently her own design, which is awesome. She made it herself. It has a very twisted vibe with the central cult symbol surrounded by various human shapes, and I think is depicting the void maybe? It does lack festive elements for sure, but it's not completely devoid of the idea with the falling blood instead of snow. Is that a stretch? Ash, am I crazy for putting this so high? It does look fairly simple, but I do love the design and it looks very festive too. It features his main weapons of the chainsaw and boomstick, and has these tiny falling Necronomicons to act as snow. It also features a row of trees and this sort of chain pattern at the top. I really love it, despite it feeling fairly generic in look, it really stands out I think. Chucky I'm putting quite high as well despite his simplicity, but it's because of his unique customization, with him taking the branded good guy sweater and carving out not so above it and Chucky on the back. The color scheme is also very fitting, with it literally being in line with his doll brand. I really like this one. It works well with the space it has available too, to be fair, because there's not much space on Chucky as though he's tiny. Rick I think has a lovely design, which looks so clear. It looks so neat and sharp, which I love. The way it mixes the festive elements with the character features is near perfect I think, and I just love this design. The central silhouette of himself, maybe a bit self-absorbed Rick, but it looks good. Then the walkers behind and the sheriff hat and revolvers on the back. That's maybe one bit I'd change, is just having the single python rather than having two revolvers, but that's being like super picky. V has a very nice collage of various elements on her sweater, with it combining her drumming, her band, small amps and skulls, and also an overall clear festive theme, with it all coming together as this really nice image. I love the explosive aspect of it as well, with all of the jagged lines and the very striking axe on the back too. Yoichi I really like actually as well, and I think the colours having this festive but also sort of nautical theme is very cool and a bit different, but perfectly fits him. It has the central tape and then also the phone on the back, relaying the cycle of Sadako's curse. I really love this one. Cheryl is one that does look very simple, but it's just so good. It's got perfect festive colours with its reds and green, but also incorporates the Order's logo or seal at the centre, and it blends so well with the overall sweater design, with many extra features like the tangling barbed wire on the arms. This sweater also works great with so many of her cosmetics, and is debatably one of her best cosmetics overall, which is quite the feat. You also have one of the bunnies on the back too, which works pretty well. Perfect ugly sweaters. Michonne, I love this one. The colours are so amazing, and I love how it blends this pink with the brown at the bottom. The walkers also being depicted in this, and then her standing over them with her two companion walkers, and her katana being featured on her back. There is a festive theme to this one too, with these small snow-like patterns and designs, which is really nice. Orela I think is pretty perfect too. It has an idea and executes it pretty flawlessly, with it showing off an ambulance led by reindeer, like Santa's sleigh. There's the cityscape below, and there's a lovely falling of snow made up of first aid signs, presents, and crosses. It's really lovely. Bill I love as well, and is almost an iconic look for him at this point I think, with many opting to wear this regularly on Bill. It has the central war theme with the helicopter and rifles, but also features zombies lining the bottom, and the huge and striking Left 4 Dead hand reaching out on the back. I love how the festive theme is incorporated here too, with the snow being these small falling military ranks. Yun-Jin has an awesome look as well, with her sweater being so unique as it's pretty much glowing and has this great aura to it. It's got a combination of music notes but also these lovely stars as well. Leopard print patterns paired with snowflakes, a nice combining of herself with the festive season, and again I just love the colours and the glow here. Jill I would debate is the best though, and again a little biased here I know, Jill was my first P100, but I do think her sweater ticks all the boxes perfectly. It's got her in there, it's got clear festive elements and colour scheme, and it feels like an ugly sweater in its style and presentation. She's got the classic lightning hawks above the star shield, then the festive patterns all around, with her name printed across the back with a red herb below. It feels very Resident Evil, but also super festive. So yeah, I think this is pretty much perfect. Let me know your thoughts as always though, down below, as this is a super subjective ranking. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.